Good morning. So thank you for coming this morning. I'll first request Shri Mahmood Ali Ji, Honorable Deputy Chief Minister of the state of Telangana, to offer a formal welcome.
Good morning, everyone. His Holiness the Dalai Lama and my dynamic leader, Young Sri K.T. Ramarao Garu, Honorable Minister of MAUD, IT and Industries, Government of Telangana, and Jayesh Ranjan Saab, Secretary IT, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, media friends, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the government and people of the Telangana, I extend a warm welcome to His Highness, Holiness of Dalai Lama, for gracing this occasion and blessing the people of our state. His Holiness Dalai Lama, you are not only the spiritual leader for the people of Tibet, but to all the humanity across the globe. His Holiness is the epitome of peace and non-violence for the entire world and was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for non-violent struggle for the liberation of Tibet. Apart from this, His Holiness is the first Nobel Prize winner to talk and show his concern on global environmental problems. Our state, our Honorable Chief Minister is follow the Holiness Dalai Lama, and our state, जो आज मूवमेंट हमारे ऑनरेबल सीएम साहब ने 14 साल जो मूवमेंट तेलंगाना का चला है, बहुत पीसफुल मूवमेंट चला है, वो हमारे लिए दलाई लामा साहब का एक एग्जाम्पल है, जिन्होंने हमेशा पीस की तालीम दी है। आज हमारे पास हमारी स्टेट की जानिब से ज़मीन अलाट की गई है, जहाँ पर बहुत अच्छी तरीके से बिल्डिंग बनाई जा रही है, जिसका नाम पीस कायम करने के लिए, और पीस हमारे लिए बहुत अहमियत का हामिल है। हमारे हॉलीनेस दलाई लामा ने हमेशा इंडिया में पीस की तालीम दी है, इंडिया में नहीं सारे वर्ल्ड में पीस की तालीम दी है। पीस हमारे लिए बहुत अहमियत का हामिल है, और हमारे ऑनरेबल सीएम साहब ने इस तेलंगाना स्टेट में तेलंगाना फॉर्मेशन के बाद बहुत पीस के लिए काम किया है। तेलंगाना स्टेट बनने से पहले बहुत से लोगों में डाउट था कि तेलंगाना बनने के बाद किस तरह पीस कायम रहेगा, क्योंकि इससे पहले यहाँ के हालात वैसे नहीं थे। मगर हमारे ऑनरेबल सीएम साहब ने जिस तरह इस स्टेट को इंडिया में पीस स्टेट का नाम दिया, और हमारी स्टेट में हमेशा पीस और वेलफेयर का काम किया जाता है। इंडिया में अगर नंबर 1 स्टेट है तो हमारी तेलंगाना स्टेट है, जो पीस पर और डेवलपमेंट पर काम कर रही है। और हमारे ऑनरेबल चीफ मिनिस्टर भी इंडिया में नंबर 1 चीफ मिनिस्टर है, जो आज हमारे इंडिया में हर जगह मिसाल ली जाती है। आज से कुछ 2 महीने पहले मैं और हमारे फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ईटा राजेंद्र साहब, हमारे चीफ सेक्रेटरी साहब, जब हमारे होम मिनिस्टर साहब से सेंट्रल में मुलाकात की, राजनाथ सिंह साहब से, तो उन्होंने एक बात कही कि तेलंगाना स्टेट का जहाँ भी नाम लिया जाता है, वहाँ सिर्फ यही कहा जाता है कि ये डेवलप स्टेट या पीस की स्टेट या वेलफेयर स्टेट का नाम है, तो तेलंगाना स्टेट है। आज हमारी स्टेट में हम होलीनेस दलाई लामा साहब का खैर मकदम करते हैं। यकीनन वो एक बहुत बड़े वर्ल्ड के बहुत बड़े इंसान हैं। वो हमेशा सारी दुनिया में पीस की तालीम देते रहे, और हम यही चाहते हैं उनकी तालीम हमारे स्टेट में भी कायम रहे और चलती रहे। आज हम लोग उनका वेलकम कर रहे हैं। वो हमारी स्टेट इससे पहले भी एक बार आए थे। एक बहुत बड़ा स्टैचू, हम बुद्धिस्ट स्टैचू टैंकमेंट पर 2006 में जब लगाया गया था, जब हमारे दलाई लामा साहब भी यहाँ तशरीफ लाए थे और वो इसका इनाग्रेशन में आए थे। तो हम यही चाहते हैं कि हमारी स्टेट में उनका आशीर्वाद रहे, उनके हमेशा जो रास्ता तालीम है अमन और पीस का, उसे हम कायम रखें और उनके साथ हम चलते रहें और उनके बताए हुए रास्ते पर हम अमल करें। और हमारी स्टेट की जानिब से हम वेलकम करते हैं कि वो आज हमारी न्यू स्टेट तेलंगाना स्टेट में तशरीफ़ लाए हैं, यकीनन हमारे लिए बड़ी खुशी की बात है। और हम यही चाहते हैं कि उन्होंने जो रास्ता हमें बताया है, सारे दुनिया को जो रास्ता बता रहे हैं, उस पर हमारी स्टेट की आवाम भी अमल करेगी और हमारी स्टेट की जानिब से उनका वेलकम किया जाता है, तमाम आवाम की जानिब से उनका वेलकम किया जाता है। जय तेलंगाना, जय हिंद।
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, sir. I'll request next Honorable Sri K.T. Rama Rao. He doesn't need any introduction to please come and introduce His Holiness.
Good morning. Thank you. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome His Holiness Dalai Lama to Hyderabad. As you all know, his name, his fame, his influence transcends all regional, religious, and geographical boundaries. His Holiness's message of universal responsibility and compassion has transformed the minds and hearts of millions around the world. His work on non-violence has influenced many great leaders in the world and was recognized by a Nobel Peace Prize in the year 1989. He has received hundreds of awards and honorary degrees from a number of academic institutions around the world. Yet, he refers to himself as a simple Buddhist monk. I've had the pleasure and the privilege of interacting with him over the last 60 minutes. I'm amazed. I'm simply floored by his humility, his amazing grace, and his wonderful sense of humor, which you will, I'm sure, find out in the next few minutes. We invited His Holiness here today as a global leader and as a voice of conscience. We are privileged to be in his presence. Today, His Holiness has also laid the foundation stone in the presence of His Excellency, the Governor of State of Telangana, and also our Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, for the Dalai Lama Center for Ethics and Transformative Values, which will be a hub dedicated to inquiry, dialogue, and education on the ethical and humane dimensions of life. This will be very close, in fact, to where we are seated. As a collaborative and a non-partisan think tank, this center will focus on the development of interdisciplinary research and programs in varied fields of knowledge, from science and technology to education and international relations. Our programs emphasize responsibility and examine meaningfulness and moral purpose between individuals, organizations, and societies. This center was founded to honor the vision of the 14th Dalai Lama and his call for a holistic education that includes the development of human and global ethics. 6 Nobel Peace Laureates are the founding members of this center. We are honored that the Dalai Lama Center for Ethics and Transformative Values chose Hyderabad for its South Asia hub. In light of the rapid transformation impacting India and the whole region, it is imperative that we prepare present and the future leaders for the work of serving their communities. I'm happy that the government of Telangana has decided to support this wonderful initiative by allotting the land that was requested for, and also by way of a grant of rupees 5 crores from the government side as well. Once again, I'd like to welcome His Holiness, His Excellency Dalai Lama Ji, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be visiting us and to be amidst all of us. So thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
I always refer you as a brothers and sisters. I myself also consider one of the 7 billion human beings. Actually, entire 7 billion human beings are brothers, sisters. The way we born, then the way we die, same way. Whether Raja or Rani or spiritual leader or beggar, same. So I really feel we need a sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. That kind of sort of view, feeling, wherever me personally, you see, whenever I go, having this sort of as the conviction, then it's no barrier. Whenever I met someone, smile, and then they also, most cases, they're also smiling. Then feel happy. Sometimes some individual, you see, I smile, but still they remain. So sometimes, you see, in spite of my smile, you see, no response, smile. Then sometimes I tickle. Oh, then smile comes. So individual level, I really feel, wherever I go, I feel meet or amongst human brothers, sisters. Now here, you see, we are mentally, emotionally, physically, we are same. In the secondary level, yes, there are differences. I'm Tibetan, I'm Buddhist. Then maybe, you see, I'm a Dalai Lama. So if I too much emphasis, I'm Dalai Lama. Then out of 7 billion, only one Dalai Lama. So then I get the feeling of loneliness. Isn't it? When I sort of, and also you see, if I sort of too much stress, I'm Buddhist. Then meeting with other people, sometimes there is a barrier. No. Emphasis, we are same human being. Different faith, different nationality, different race, different family background. That's secondary, not important. Then furthermore, most of the problem which we created, actually humans, our own creation, all these man-made problem with too much emphasis on a secondary level of differences, including religious faith. Now look, it is really unthinkable, sad. The religious faith itself causing division and killing. And different part of the world, same planet, same human being, suffering out of sort of too much emphasis on secondary level. And we, as a human brother, you see, we cannot ignore these things. We cannot remain indifferent. That is immoral. We have to think well-being of all these suffering people, really. A nature disaster beyond our control. And I think due to global warming, I think more and more nature disaster, I think, come. And then eventually, I think big cities like Calcutta or Tokyo and different sort of city, big cities which, and also you see Holland, some cities, even you see below sea level. So now because of global warming, the Arctic sort was it? Oh, you see glaciers, you see melting quite rapidly. So sea level increasing. Some small island, eventually, I think, submerge. So, because of global warming, I think more and more difficulties, I think, come. So, we should be ready to help each other with sense of oneness of humanity. I think a global event in 20th century, I think early part of 20th century, very much emphasis different nationality. So, First World War, Second World War, and Korean War, Vietnam War, all these, too much emphasis on ideology or different sort of races or different nationality. Later part of 20th century, I think human being, particularly in the European continent, I think in the past several centuries, fighting each other, killing each other, like French and German. One of my teacher, von Weizsäcker, quantum physicist, one German professor. In 1990s, when his age also around 90, so he told me when he was as a young German, every German eye, French is their enemy. Similarly, French eye, German is their enemy. That kind of thinking, when we talk, you see, in 1990s, and he mentioned nowadays that kind of concept completely disappear. So, in reality, I think German, the French, I think the leading sort of nation, and with Adenauer and de Gaulle, I think create the spirit of European Union. So previously, arch enemy, through their difficulties, their experience from immense destruction of war, they realize now that kind of sort of attitude is mutually destruction. So better live together. So European Union spirit we should develop. And I am one of the admirers of European Union. I often you see expressing the European Union spirit now eventually should develop in Africa, African Union. Then much problem I think will reduce. And also you see, I can save a lot of money, so-called sovereignty state, and spend a lot of money for weapon. So these because of the union, I think immense help economically and mentally also. Separate nation, mentally fear, distrust. Union. Many occasions I ask some young Europeans, like French, I ask, what do you feel your next neighbor, German, or some other country? They usually answer, oh, our neighbor, our good neighbor. Now that kind of sort of view, feeling, I think we need. So eventually, in Latin America, I think should develop one union. And also sometimes I feel when the new president of America, you see, now create wall, and I feel Mexico should be part of United States. I feel much better. So like that. And then Latin America, some union, then eventually Asia. Two giant sort of Asian country, China and India. And then technologically, Japan, most industrialized democratic Asian country. And then of course Bangladesh or these countries eventually create some kind of union. Then my dream, of course, we will not achieve or materialize within this century. I think to the 2nd century, 3rd century, eventually, I think should create union of world. Then world can be demilitarized world. Now, in order to achieve demilitarized world, firstly, we must make effort to create the spirit of dialogue. It's practical way. All problem, so long human beings remain there, problem will remain. So the method, the best method, or the way of human approach, that is the dialogue. Whenever some different interests, different views happen, through dialogue, through talk, and with sense of global responsibility, we can solve. So this century, I often used to telling, in order to achieve this century, peaceful century, we must create, this century should be century of dialogue. All these ultimately related with a moral principle. With full of anger, distrust, jealousy, impossible to achieve that. So more sense of oneness of humanity, that very much related with sense of concern of others' well-being. That is compassion, karuna. This country, over 3,000 years, concept of ahimsa there. Ahimsa on level of action, mainly. So in order to carry ahimsa action, karuna is the basis of ahimsa. You see, ahimsa, out of fear, is not genuine ahimsa. Out of compassion, or non-violent, restraint, harming other, that's a genuine ahimsa. So India, 3,000 years, this concept there. With that, I think one example, this country, I think the last 3,000 years, beside homegrown different religions, all major religious tradition, you see, eventually settle in this country. So homegrown different religion is Sangha philosophy, and with through Sangha, some different sort of Hindu traditions, then Jainism, then Buddhism. These are homegrown religion. Then later Sikhism. I think very much sort of spirit of non-sectarian religious harmony. The Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism, Hindu background, but took pilgrimage to Mecca. That shows, you see, 1,000 years old India's tradition, religious tolerance, mutual respect. So then, Zoroastrian come from ancient Parsi, Iran. In Bombay, many Parsis I know. So their population less than 100,000, but very peaceful, no fear. That's India. So from outside, then eventually Judaism come. In Kerala, Cochin, I found some bigger Jewish community like that. Wonderful, very peaceful. And Christian come. I think a large number of Indian follow Christianity. And then Muslim. I think India, I think the second country where the big number of Islam, Muslim. First, Indonesia, then India. So the Muslim population here bigger than Pakistan. So this basically is the Hindustan, Indian, basically is the Hindu tradition, right? But so all world religious tradition live here. Occasionally some problems, that's understandable. India is land of human being, not land of God. So therefore some mischievous people always there. So here there are some problems, that's understandable. But overall, I think India is the only country where all major world religious traditions live together with mutual respect. I often telling Indian should take more active role promotion of religious harmony, particularly Indian Muslim. Now in this country, hardly any sort of problem between Shia and Sunni. So there's some Middle East now, Sunni and Shia, serious problem. So I think Indian Muslim should take some sort of effort. Recently, last year, I met some young people from I think 10 different countries, mainly in Arab and Africa, Muslim, mainly Muslim country. Oh, when we met, one American society organized that meeting. When we discuss, then some of these young students, some African, at the moment, the explosion, and some of their sort of friend or classmate dying. That very moment, a young Muslim, African Muslim, told me, that very moment he determined to do peace, bring peace. I really admire. That's human being. He loves peace. Nobody wants violence. Violence brings suffering. Actually, mutual destruction. I think our old concept, the use force, is the effective method, is outdated thinking. As I mentioned earlier, we must now follow any problem through dialogue, try to solve. So I really admire, that young African Muslim. Such desperate situation. Instead of develop anger, develop determination. I must do something to bring peace. I told him, and also I really felt, if I was there, such sort of circumstances, I think my first thinking is how to escape. I think that young African sort of, that very moment, he developed determination. Now we must make effort for peace. Wonderful. So therefore, now things are changing. I think, particularly among younger generation, I think sense of concern of others' well-being and totally sort of against violence. So therefore, I think India really, I think, example to rest of the world. Different religious traditions can live together and through mutual respect and in some cases mutual learning. And then other hand, another factor, I often used to expressing India, in ancient India, I think really marvelous sort of concept or understanding or awareness about mind, about emotion. Ancient Indian psychology, compare modern psychology, Indian psychology, highly developed. So sometimes I express the modern psychology, compare ancient Indian psychology, modern psychology looks like a kindergarten level. India is highly developed. And then different philosophy. I think among Egyptian civilization, Chinese civilization, and Kazati, Indus Valley civilization. It seems eventually Indus Valley civilization, I think, produced most thinkers, great philosophers. So most of these sort of major religious traditions, and including Buddhism, I think very much emphasis philosophy. So maybe I'm Buddhist, so maybe a little bit biased view. Now, last over 30 years, I have serious discussion with scientists, mainly 4 fields: cosmology, neurobiology, then physics, particularly quantum physics, then psychology. These 4 fields, after 30 years of sort of a serious discussion, it became very clear. We also learned very, very useful sort of knowledge or information from scientists, like cosmology, these things. Although Buddhist literature briefly mentioned, but very detailed, I think scientific finding is much authentic like that. Very useful. Then to scientists, Buddhist psychology. They really appreciate this ancient Indian knowledge about emotion, about mind, how to tackle our emotion. Ahimsa is one of the sort of the method to tackle our emotion. And with that, religious harmony, these things will happen. Therefore, ancient Indian sort of knowledge about inner world, I usually call inner world, very much related with moral principle. So therefore, now modern Indian, if may I say so, I think modern Indian is too much westernized. Now time come, please pay some attention about your 1,000-year-old knowledge about mind, about emotion, and how to tackle these things. And logic. I think in this country, I think all these different sort of philosophy we always use logic. So as far as Buddhism is concerned, Dignac, Dharmakirti, and Shantarakshita, Kamalashila, these two persons actually visited Tibet on the invitation of Tibetan emperor. So they introduced Buddha Dharma according to Nalanda tradition, so including logic and philosophy. So now today's world, it becomes quite clear. I think as far as knowledge, the logics, science of mind, and different Buddhist philosophy is concerned, I think we Tibetans have best knowledge. Because we study at least 20, 30 years, rigorous study. So therefore, I think we can say proudly, I think as far as Nalanda tradition is concerned, we kept intact over 1,000 years. So in any way, you Indian have the ability to combine modern technology, modern education, which oriented material value, that with ancient your knowledge about inner peace, inner value. I think only India have the ability to combine these two things. So now young Indian should pay more attention about your ancient sources and knowledge. So now recent years, more and more young Indian, some universities, some organization, they seriously now thinking how to revive ancient Indian knowledge, Indian tradition. So this is quite encouraging. So now this, the coming sort of the center certainly can be one small sort of contributor regarding revival of ancient Indian knowledge. So I very much appreciate my friend. Thank you. And then also you see state government is showing interest in these things. So, for example, the Dalai Lama Center. Dalai Lama, just one student of Nalanda tradition. And we, I often express, I'm just the follower or student of Nagarjuna. His philosophy, Madhyamika philosophy, really, not only intellectually, something interest, but also, you see, the emotional level, these sort of philosophical views, really immense sort of potential to transform about our emotion. That through my own little experience, I can say to you. So therefore, like Nagarjuna sort of philosophy, very similar, some point very similar, that of quantum physics. You know, many years ago, one occasion, the Raja Ramana, Indian sort of physicist, nuclear physicist, see, he told me one day, the quantum physics in the world, in modern world, is something new concept. But in this country, 2,000 years ago, already that concept already developed. So he found some Nagarjuna's sort of writing. He found the concept of quantum physics. It is true. If I may sort of further sort of elaboration where I think quantum physicists, they already sort of know external thing as far as external things, nothing objectively exists. So long observer there, things there. When observer no longer there, things not very sure. So nothing objectively exists. Then they use the word observer. And observer level is still not very clear. Because you see, modern science much pay attention about external thing, not observer themselves. Now in this country, over 3,000 years, the concept of Atma and Anatma, you see, talking about observer. Where is observer? And the concept of sort of life after life. So there must be something beside this body and mind. So the concept of Atma developed. So later, Buddhism, Buddhist philosophy, and other philosophy, there are a lot of discussions whether there is Atma or not. So in any way, I think in this country, not only external thing, but also the observer. So therefore, I think it seems, and quantum physicists, when they still confuse what is observer. In that respect, that level, I think Buddhist philosophy really immense help. So therefore, I think I usually feel really proud when I visit different place, different country. I always talk these things. So I consider I'm messenger of ancient Indian thought. I think reality, I think I talk more ancient Indian knowledge than I think Indian leaders. So as a student of ancient Indian knowledge, so it is, I really believe this knowledge is related with humanity, not just one nation or two nations. So therefore, in order to promote happier humanity, all trouble start from here. So this ancient Indian knowledge is very essential. Then furthermore, it's a few years ago, I met some medias from Chinese community, some from America or some, I think, Taiwan or so on. I think some from Hong Kong and mainland also, I think. So on occasion, they asked me, you described yourself as a son of India. Why you are saying that? I think he felt this political sort of reason. He might just feel that way. Then I told, I say, all my brain, all cells of my brain filled by Nalanda thought. Then this physical, over 50 years, survived by with Indian dals, Indian chapati, Indian rice. So therefore, mentally, physically, I survived with these sort of ancient Indian thing. Therefore, I describe I'm son of India. Truly. So now, my age, since I think age 24, now my age about 82 years. Next July, my birthday, and 82 years old. So, the young girl here, if you look my face, what do you think my age? Huh? 20, I think 22. I think a little bit exaggeration. I think some of my friends say, judging my face, they say, or 60 or 70. So all these, I think, physical health, very much related with healthy mind. For healthy mind, this Indian traditional knowledge is very much effective to keep peaceful mind. Okay. So, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You heard His Holiness, and you saw how interesting a man he is. And at 82, well, I actually think he looks 22. He wouldn't agree, but nevertheless, His Holiness is willing to take a few questions, and he would like it to be from the audience and nothing scripted, nothing, and no serious questions, I hope, yeah?
Any questions?
There are microphones circulating somewhere around. Can you please get the microphone to the gentleman there, please?
Merom.
Phone kahan hai bhai?
Hello.
Oh, there.
Hello.
Please introduce
Sir,
yourself.
here. Sir, I'm
Oh, yes.
Aravind.
Yes.
So I have a question. Most of the inner dimensions are intangible and invaluable. Okay. And most of the external things are tangible and valuable. Like we just give value, we define value. So all the time as an entrepreneur and as a startup, I just can't give my idea in a valuable way because it is invaluable inside.
Korsa.
So I think you got it. How do we combine both?
Material and immaterial, how do you combine?
Now we have body and mind, including emotion. So for this body, we need material facilities. So the modernization, more material development, also important. Now particularly at the moment, out of 7 billion, I think a majority of people remain under poverty. Poverty. This country also, while you see more economic development, but still a lot of poor people in big city slums. So we need further material development. And then material development, some of my friends, some American, some European, billionaire, very rich, but as a human being, when we settle and sort of discuss about different experiences, then I found many of these billionaires materially very rich, but as a person, very unhappy person. Too much stress, too much worry. So therefore, this inner value brings mental peace. So we need both material development, we need, I think this huge gap, rich and poor, I think not only morally wrong, but practically also source of problem. So we still need more money, more material development. And I often, this morning, we also, you see, discuss now further India's development should concentrate more on rural area. Big cities, when I coming here, a lot of construction of big building. So I prefer, you see, more small sort of flat in rural area, and a small industry, and some education facility and health facility, you see, should develop in rural area. So majority of Indians in rural area, there's mutual benefit, more development in rural area, the people get benefit, and then people in the big city, less crowd, and less also vehicle. So sometimes too much vehicle, then you have to wait. And then some my friend, you see, telling me suicide rate in cities higher number, in village side less. So logically, in village side, farming. So there is more sense of community and friendship. At big cities, everybody, you see, they on time go office or something somewhere and take salary. You see, I think less is human contact. So therefore, in any way, the rural area development is very important. So in any way, your question, now here, some scientists, you see, they investigated about human nature. I also used to participate such sort of meeting. And one scientist show one picture, one sort of cartoon. You see, two children play together with smile. When that cartoon show a 5-month-old infant child, language not yet developed, very innocent. When that picture, two children helping each other with smile, when the infant child seeing that, smiling like that. Another cartoon, two children, negative attitudes one another. When that cartoon show to the infant child, infant child also you see showing unpleasant sort of feeling. So they concluded basic human nature is more compassionate. Then furthermore, constant fear, constant anger, actually eating our immune system. More compassionate mind, more peaceful mind, very, very helpful to sustain our immune system. So now this scientific finding. So they concluded basic human nature is more compassionate. So when I heard that, I really felt now there is hope. If basic human nature is anger, then no hope. Since basic human nature is compassionate, so there is real hope. Now the problem, existing education system, very much oriented external values, not much pay attention about inner value, as I mentioned before. So I think existing education system is, I think, also not adequate, you see, to support basic human nature, that's compassion, support from our intelligence, supporting that. That is lacking. When we talk about moral principle, we not at all talking about religious faith. We talking moral principle according secular way. India's constitution also is secular, based on secular. So according Indian understanding, secular means respect all religions and also respect non-believer. That ancient Indian sort of thinking is very relevant to today's world. Now today, out of 7 billion, about 1 billion non-believer. So we must include these non-believers. So the education about moral ethics should include non-believer. Therefore, our sort of method or education, the way to educate these moral principles entirely, strictly based on secular way. Like that.
Thank
What
you.
do you think?
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Thank you. Next question.
Sir, let's keep it brief and straight, please, the question.
Yes, sir. Sir, my name is Sesha Rao from a company called Inside You. I was referring to one of the addresses that you made in Europe, sir, which is actually what you just touched upon. And what do you think is the role of the parents, sir, because parents being the first teachers in the inner value?
Very important role. Now, one sort of my friend, one scientist, Bob Livingston, now he no longer. You see, he told me after birth, next few weeks, the child's simply physical touch with the mother is key factor for the proper development of the brain. So even, you see, just a physical touch, very important factor. Then the affection, particularly from mother. And recently I saw one program, BBC, mother's milk is very essential for child's sort of, because of the physical development. Each month, child needs certain sort of different, I don't know, protein or something. Also, by nature, in mother's milk, you see these elements there. First month, after birth, first month, second month, third month, like that. So the cow milk, these, of course, milk, potent, never, nutritious, but still can also replace mother's own milk. So mother, parent, general, sometimes father, not very sure. My own case, my father, very short temper, so I don't like my father. My mother, very, very compassionate. So I consider my mother was the first teacher of compassion. So I think mother, parent, and friends, and particularly mother, I think should spend more time with child and give mother's own milk and physical touch. That's, I think, it's very important. So the other day, I participated Women's Kasa.
National Women's Parliament.
Oh, so I told her, now time come, the female should take more active role regarding promotion of human compassion. Existing education, as I mentioned earlier, not adequate. So now time come, we should make effort for promotion of deeper human value. That is human love, human compassion. In that respect, female, biologically, more sensitive, others' pain, others' suffering. That also the scientist, you see, observed. So one picture, painful sort of experiencing someone, two person, and one male, one female, watching that physically, including heart beating, female, more sensitive. So the scientists, they say female biologically is more potential taking care about other. So therefore, I think female should take more active role regarding promotion of human value, human compassion.
We only have time for one last question, so because we have the next program. The
Yeah.
lady
Your
out there with the mic.
Holiness, Your Holiness, I'd like to ask you a question. I'm Meera Madhusudan from Sikkim. And my question is how to prepare for death. How to prepare for death and afterlife.
Now that depends on individuals or say the attitude. If person believe religion, then also within religion, theistic religion, non-theistic religion, so there are differences. So as far as a theistic religious believer is concerned, and think about God. And God means infinite love. Think that at the moment you're dying, some kind of feeling of compassion. And remember God, infinite love. That I think is good. Then a Buddhist, non-theistic religion is no concept of creator, but rather self-creation. So Buddha stated, you are your own master. So therefore, you see, at the time dying, you see, think about the Buddha's main message is karuna. And combined with philosophy, that is, you see, nothing independently exists. Like quantum physics now, saying that, some similar. So therefore, you see, everything exists due to other factor, not by itself. You see, that concept, you see, very much supportive about practice of compassion. Take care about others' well-being, you get immense benefit. So therefore, these philosophical thinking also, you see, useful at the time of dying. And then some other sort of practice, some visualizations. I also, in my daily practice, about 4 hours morning, some meditation, thinking, and also visualize process of death in order to prepare at the time of death. I'm not very sure when actual death comes, whether I can practice these effectively or not. I'm not very sure. But in my daily sort of prayer, daily sort of meditation, also you see, there are 8 stages at the time of death. The body element dissolve step by step. So there are 8 levels, 8 sort of stages. So at the beginning stages, our sort of memory still there. And then that moment, you think, we must think of certain things. Then memory reduce because of veins are vague, vague. And then final sort of later stage, we cannot sort of carry our memory. But when our mind, memory is still there, think like compassion or some other thing, seriously, then the impact that goes continuously. When your memory no longer working, but the influence, impact of certain thinking is there on subtle level of mind. Then finally, we call clear light. Then breathing already stopped. This, of course, sensorial level consciousness completely stop. Brain also stop. So clinically already dead. But still, the most subtle level of consciousness still there. So the indication is last now 50 years. In India, at least as far as we know, at least I think 30, 40 cases after death, body still remain fresh. So now some American scientists now begin to investigate how it happened. The breathing stop, heart beating stop. So blood circulation in brain stop. But body still remain very fresh. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, some cases 4 weeks. So the scientists, you see, no answer. So they already sort of start some sort of project for investigation that. So like that. So, so the best, I think best preparation for death is while we are still active life, should not sort of indulge in harming other. If possible, serve other, help other, at least resist harming. Then at the time of death, you feel no regret. I carry my life meaningful way. On the other hand, you spend all your life making money, and in order to make money, cheating, bully, corruptions. Then at the time of death, the thing, for the thing, you really work hard. Now this money remain in bank, now no longer any use. Even fame, no longer. So, but your sort of thinking, your activities, more, as a sort of compassionate way, then if you believe karma, then these with sincere motivation and good action creates a lot of good karma. So that affects your next life. Even without a belief that, at least at the time of dying, you feel no regret. I done. Serving others. I never harm anyone. Even insect. Some cases, mosquito, little bit exception. Myself also, you see, when you see getting sound sleep, and mosquito come, then do that. Like that. So therefore, I think they much depend on the way you carry your life. More compassionate way, that's best preparation for death.
Excellent. Your Holiness, one question I think everybody in the audience is dying to ask, and we'll end with that. If we were to look like you at 82, very youthful, what is the secret and what should we be doing?
Kasa. Secret there. That's I always respond when such questions come. That's my secret. I don't want to share.
You're not sharing it?
Then I explain. There's nothing secret. Firstly, you see, sufficient sleep. Every night, 9 hours sleep.
Not possible.
I think 9 hours. When I visit different countries, so I always get 9 hours sleep. 6 o'clock, I went, sleep. Then next 3 o'clock, wake up. Then meditate. Mainly analytical meditation and some prayers. Next 4 hours. Then evening, another 1 hour. So altogether, each day, 5 hours. So that brings inner peace. So physical level, 9 hours sleep. Mental level, 5 hours meditation brings inner peace, mental strength. So that's my secret. If you want to follow, then practice more. Study more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Your Holiness, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, I am overjoyed in sheer excitement and gratitude for what we have accomplished today and the aspirations we have set forth for the future. It is not a center, but our center for ethics and transformative values, which we shall, you and I, and everyone here, co-create in our responsible seeking for a better world for ourselves and the future generations. Let me begin by thanking His Excellency, the Governor of Telangana, who was there present this morning at the groundbreaking ceremony. Honorable Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister of Telangana for their support. When I first met Sri K.T. Ramarao, Honorable Minister of IT, and 5 other portfolios, he's my aspiration for what a successful multitasking individual looks like. I was intrigued in our conversation for his desire to shift the culture of the state towards one being steeped in ethical leadership and values such as honesty and compassion. Very few political leaders today exhibit such ethos, and I'm delighted to continue this work together, sir. I also want to express gratitude for an individual who's not here, a dear mentor and teacher, His Eminence Samdong Rinpoche. Some of you are familiar with him, who has been a board member, but a guiding force behind this vision to create the Center for Ethics and Transformative Values. An event of such magnitude is born out of hard work of many. Firstly, I want to thank Srinivas Kolipara, CEO of T-Hub, for making this effort his own and spending long hours helping prepare for this day. I want to thank the team of Minister of IT for their dedication, Office of the Chief Secretary and Collector for coordinating this event, Event Management Company Rachnotsav for creating this beautiful setup, members of the private office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala and Delhi. I want to thank various levels of security and law enforcement personnel and Telangana Police for serving and protecting one of the most beloved leaders of this world. I would like to thank our team leaders here in Hyderabad for their support, Mr. Anjaney Reddy, Vishwanath Alluri, Vijay Kumar, Sudhakar Koneru, and Shanti Shri. Member of the audiences present here and watching on the live webcast all over the world, for the press, for joining us this morning. May we continue our journey together to transform ourselves and the communities we live in. There are many others I wish to thank, but the list of names is too long. Please know that you have my utmost gratitude. Finally, Your Holiness, we are blessed to live in this time and space with your selfless, compassionate presence. Especially in these turbulent times, you are the stabilizing voice of hope. You are a shining beacon of what humanity can become. You encourage us and remind us to become better versions of ourselves every day. May you be healthy. May you live long. May you continue to catalyze much good for all. Your Holiness, we do hope to see you soon as we approach the 10th anniversary of this effort that started at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and request that you grace us once again with your presence. Your Holiness, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would request the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister to present the memento on behalf of the Government of Telangana.